Stand up now, hands behind your back.
What would you do if you lost your job, your home, and the person you loved, all at the same time? Would you give up, or would you fight when there's nothing left to hold on to? David Cole lost everything in one day, and it started with a smile that didn't feel right, because when his boss, Richard Vance, called him into the office, David thought it was a normal meeting, but within minutes, his world collapsed. Richard looked at him, calm and cold, and said he was being let go, not because he failed, but because he didn't fit. And deep down, David knew the truth. He was too smart, too sharp, and Richard saw him as a threat. But what hurt more wasn't the job loss, it was the way it happened. No warning, no respect, just a quiet push out the door. And as David walked out, carrying a small box of his things, he had no idea that was just the beginning of something much worse. Because weeks later, his savings ran out, bills piled up, and the man who once had a stable life was now choosing between food and survival. Until one night, he slept in his car, staring at the roof, hungry, tired, and broken, asking himself one painful question: is this how my life ends? But here's where everything almost went completely wrong, because with only $1 left in his pocket, David stood outside a small seminar hall, shaking, exhausted, and desperate, and he had a choice: buy food and survive one more day, or walk inside and take a risk on something he didn't fully understand. And what he chose next changed everything. He walked in, and that one decision became the turning point of his life. Because inside that room, he learned something no one had ever taught him before: that real power comes from ownership, not just working for others. And from that day, David became obsessed. He watched webinars, read everything he could find, studied leadership, money, and how successful people think. But the journey wasn't easy. In fact, it got worse. Business ideas failed, money was lost. People doubted him, and just when he thought things couldn't get harder, his wife looked at him with tears and disappointment and said she couldn't do this anymore, and she left, leaving him completely alone. And that moment right there could have destroyed him forever. But it didn't, because instead of quitting, David kept going, step by step, failure after failure, rejection after rejection, until one day something finally worked, a small success that grew into a bigger one, then another, and slowly his life started changing. And then, suddenly, everything changed fast. Money started flowing, opportunities opened, and the same man who once had nothing began building real wealth, real power, real control. But the biggest twist was still coming, because years later, David did something no one expected. He started buying shares in the same company that fired him, quietly, patiently, until one day he owned enough to make decisions, and that's when it happened. Richard Vance walked into a meeting and froze, because sitting at the head of the table was David, the man he once humiliated, now his boss. And for the first time, Richard had nothing to say, only regret, deep, heavy regret that came too late. And while that chapter closed, another one opened, because the wife who left David came back.
David, please, I know what I did was unforgivable, but I am so sorry. I miss you every day.
Full of apologies, asking for another chance after seeing his success. And David listened quietly, with no anger, no hate, and then he forgave her. But he didn't take her back, because he understood something most people never learn: that not everyone who leaves deserves a return. And as David stood at the top of a life he built from nothing, one truth became clear: sometimes losing everything is the only way to become who you were meant to be. So if you're going through a hard time right now, don't give up. Your lowest moment might be the start of your greatest story. And if this story moved you even a little, share it with someone today. Subscribe for more stories like this.